for joining me today. I want to talk about this little mini book that is 7 inches by 8 inches, and it uses the most gorgeous papers from Shokart, which are called Birdsong. Now Darlie and Pip sent me these papers, which I've matched with another set that you can get from their store, which is the Becky Said and marbled papers as well, A4, and the two just go together absolutely brilliantly, and I'm so grateful to them for giving me the opportunity to use such absolutely gorgeous papers. If you look in the information below, you'll find out a link to their shop and how you can get hold of these papers yourself. So what I'm going to do before I do the class with you is I just want to take you through the book itself just to have a quick little look. Now the papers that I've used on the front are the marbled ones, and then also I've cut out some of the Birdsong papers, and as you will see, I've actually sewn quite a lot on this book because that's my thing at the moment. I love sewing, but it is absolutely optional. It's not structural, it's just for decoration, so how you do that is entirely up to you. I've used some acrylic words throughout, and they're from Bramble Fox, which I'll also link you into as well. So the book itself, as I said, is 8 by 7 inches, and it's got a spine that is 1.5 inches, and it's just 3 pages wide. So here on the inside front cover, it's exactly the same as the inside back cover, and what we've got is just a little pocket with some photo mats, and this is more of the marble papers, and they are so cute. Just couldn't resist using them. So on this page, you'll see that actually the pages are all different sizes, and although the backs are all the same, the fronts are all slightly different. So in this little pocket here, we have got a photo mat, but a small sort of half-page pocket that opens up, and we've got another pocket here that we can put more photo mats in. A stack pocket here, once again with photo mats, and then on the back what we've got is another pocket with photo mats, but that's got a little flappy cover, so if you want to put some more photo mats in there, there is loads of room. Page 2, this is a fold out sort of accordion, so there's lots and lots and lots of spaces here for you to put your photo mats, using again the Becky Said and marble papers because they just go together so utterly perfectly. And then if you turn that over, exactly the same on the back, what we've got is one of those little pockets with a sort of a fold over envelope flap there, which we can put our photo mats in. This page, once again, a little photo mat place pocket on the front. Open that up, and inside you've got 2 photo mats here on opposing sides, but plenty of spaces for photos there as well. And then the final page at the back, once again, photo mats, pocket, and your little flap over there. So that's what we're going to be making today. If you want the cutting guide and resources list, I'll link that into you underneath as well, and you can download and print those out. So thanks again to Pip and Darlie for the most gorgeous papers, and I hope you'll enjoy working along with me today. Right, let's get on and make this book. The first thing that we're going to do is cut out our chipboard or greyboard covers. You need 2 at 7 by 8 inches and 1 at 1.5 by 7 inches. I've already cut out my front and my spine. I'm just about to finish cutting out the back page, and I've just got a little tip for you about when we cut out a chipboard or greyboard. Now, sometimes it's quite thick. I'm using 1500 microns, which is about 1.5 millimeters wide, which is quite thick. It's not something that I would cut out on my trimmer, but I will cut out by hand. Now, I find the easiest way to do this is just to keep dragging my knife backwards and forwards along my ruler until I've cut all the way through. Don't push down too hard, and don't try and get it all done in one go, because all you're going to do is hurt your wrists and hurt your fingers if you do that. So little and often would be my advice. Don't throw your bits of chipboard away. I like to use them instead of a foam pad, say, for instance, when I'm building up layers. So that is the front and back covers and the spine of my book made. Now what we're going to do next is attach the spine to the covers, and I'm going to use something called Tyvek. Now, you've probably heard me mention this a few times before. It's a breathable membrane, looks like paper, but it's particularly good in books because it strengthens the spine, which is the bit that moves all the time. Now, you don't have to have it. You can put your book directly onto your cardstock, but like I said, I like it because it will strengthen. Okay, so I've got my piece of Tyvek, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spine, which is 7 by 1.5 inches, put some wet glue on that, and I am going to attach it to the middle of my Tyvek like that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the front and back covers on, but to make that easy, I'm going to line up with a mark on my cutting board. So I've lined up my spine, and I'm just going to put some wet glue onto that bit of Tyvek like that. And I'm going to take one of my cover pieces and I'm going to line it up along that line down there, but I'm going to leave a gap in my spine, probably about 1/8 of an inch, a little bit more. Now I've cut this badly, so just don't ignore the fact that there's a lot more at the bottom than there is at the top. I cut my spine the wrong size and cut it down and didn't do it very straight, so don't worry about that. Okay, right, so exactly the same on this side as again. I'm going to line that up, and I'm going to leave a gap of around 1/8 of an inch. That's rather better than that one, on that side like that. Okay, so that will now form my book. That's what it looks like on the inside, and that's what it looks like on the outside. Now I'm now going to cover this in plain cardstock. In my original, you can see that what I've done here is I've used the marble paper on the back, and then I've used some of the pattern paper on the spine, and I have taken some of the pattern paper and cut that out, built it up on bits of chipboard and stuck that onto the front, and I've done some sewing. Sewing, as I mentioned before, is totally optional. You don't have to do the sewing at all, and for the purposes of the class, I'm going to make this book purely in white cardstock. Now I've used the pattern paper to actually cover my book here, but I'm just, like I said, I'm going to just use white just so that you get an idea. And then you can go off and design your decoration to your heart's content. So next thing that I'm going to do is just put down some double-sided tape all the way along the outside of my cover like that, up to where the spine meets the cover. Now I'm not going to put any double-sided tape over that gap between the spine and the cover, because I find that that just encourages your cardstock or your paper to rip when you come to fold the book. So I avoid putting double-sided tape on that bit. So this doesn't have to be pretty or perfect, because it's just going to be holding our cover paper onto the book. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of strips actually on the spine, but like I said, I am avoiding those gaps between the spine and the cover. Okay, so let's just make sure that's gone down. And now I'm going to cover the book. So take off some of this double-sided tape. Helps if you've got nails for this. And I'm going to take a piece of my cardstock and I'm going to lay this sticky side down on top like that. Doesn't matter about this gap here, because of course I'm going to be covering that. And I'm just going to take off some of that excess cardstock there because I don't need it. Let's just take that off. Okay, so now I'm just going to mitre the edges here. And there's 101 ways you can do these corners, but I'm just going to show you the current way for me at the moment. First of all, I like to start with the end piece. I'm going to fold that over, and I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure I get a really nice crease there with that paper. I'm going to take a little bit of double-sided tape, pop that on there because this will secure the card whilst it dries, whilst the wet glue dries. And I'm going to fold that over like that. Use my bone folder to make a mark where those edges are. I'm going to snip with my scissors, open that up, and then snip into that corner like that. Now I'm going to fold that over, use my bone folder to get a really nice sharp crease. Some double-sided tape. Wet glue. Fold that over and secure, and then do exactly the same. On this side. Okay. Okay, so that's one part of the cover on. What I'm going to do now is this side. I'm going to leave the spine free, and we're going to come back and do that together in a moment. So if you just cover the front and the back parts of your cover, we'll come back and we'll do the spine cover together. Okay, so that is the front and the back covers all nicely covered, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the spine covering on. So I'm going to take off those couple of pieces of double-sided tape that I had there, and I'm going to measure how wide I want this to be. So I want a little bit of an overlap, so I'm going to cut it at 5 inches. So it's going to be the length of an A4 piece-ish. That doesn't have to be desperate, you're just going to have enough to fold over, and then I'm going to cut this at 5 inches. Now it's really important that we get a really good clean adhesion on the outside of this spine covering. So the way that I do it is I put some double-sided tape just inside of the edges, not right to the edge, because I find that tape doesn't always stick as well as we might like. So I like to use tape to keep things in the right position, but what's actually going to keep it well stuck is the glue. So I'm just running a bead of glue down between that tape and the edge of the card. Now if I just use my mat again just to line that up, I'm just going to eyeball now where I need to put the spine of my book. So I'm going to guess about there. So if I lie that down, I've got the spine covering, and what I need to do is fold these over and glue it down really tight. So fold fold that over and make sure that that's stuck down. Turn this round and do exactly the same on that side. Okay. Now, if this was a class, I tell you, you've got to leave this a week before you fold it. But what I'm going to say to you is the quicker you fold it, the more likely it is that this is going to tear and mess up your spine. So I'm going to put this to one side. Ideally it would leave overnight, but I want you to leave it for at least 3 hours. Okay, so our next job is to cut out and make our hinges. Now each hinge is going to be 3/4 of an inch in height, and to make those we need to first cut a piece which is 7 by 7 1/4 inches, so it's almost a square. Okay, now each of the gussets that we're going to need, because there's 3 pages, so 3 hinges, and each of the gussets is 3/8 of an inch, so you're going to have to excuse me because these are going to be pretty weird measurements. So what we're going to do is we're going to score on the 7 1/4 inch side, so that means we're putting the 7 1/4 inch side of the paper at the top, and the first measurement that we're going to do is we're going to score at 1 inch. Okay, so just score at 1 inch. Because each of our hinges are 3/4 of an inch, our next score mark is going to be at 1 3/4 of an inch. The next score mark we're going to make is at 2 1/2 inches. Now, as I said, our gussets are 3/8 of an inch, so what we need to do now is score at 2 7/8 of an inch. So what we've got now is our first hinge and our first gusset. The next hinge is going to be at, and let me just think about this a minute, so that's 1 2 3, is going to be at 3 5/8 of an inch, and the next score mark is going to be at 4 3/8 of an inch. Next score mark is going to be at 4 3/4 of an inch. The next one at 5 1/2 inches, and the next one at 6 1/4 inches. So what we've got here are 2 gussets of 3/8 of an inch, and we've got our hinges which are 3/4 of an inch high, and there are 3 of those. So pop your scoreboard to one side, and now we're going to fold up and put our hinges together. So quickly, what I'll just say to you is that each of those 3/4 of an inch hinge, that is going to be our mountain fold. So I'm just going to do that quickly because I often find that's a good place to start, so I know where my mountain hinges are going to be. So I've just folded in the very middle of those hinge bits. Now, this bit, that's going to be the flap, the wing, where I attach my hinge to the book. So I've got my wing that attaches the hinge to the book, hinge up, and then next bit hinge down, which will take me to my gusset. Fold up on the gusset, fold my hinge up down to the next gusset, and fold that hinge up again. So what I'm left with now is my hinges, which are 3/4 of an inch long, plus my 3/8 of an inch gusset. So when I glue these together, I'm going to have my 3 hinges and 2 gussets plus the 2 wings that attach the thing to the book. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I put those together. So I like to use a little bit of double-sided tape. I'm just going to pop that into the middle of my hinges. Just take that off. And this is only just to hold the hinges together whilst the glue dries. So I'm going to get my wet glue and cat hairs, because you know, what's a book without cat hairs? Let's put some wet glue down on there. Fold that over. Just going to grab my bone folder just to make sure that that's stuck down really well and that my hinge is burnished well. So that is my first hinge stuck together. Okay, so now I'm going to stick the next hinge together. So a bit more wet glue. Doesn't want to come out. I'm going to need a new one soon. There we go. Let's glue that together. So now what I've got is two hinges, the flap that attaches to the book, the two hinges and the gusset, and I'm going to do the final hinge. Glue that down. Burnish it a bit, and there we have our hinge unit, which are the three hinges and the two gussets, and next we're going to attach that to the spine of our book. Okay, so here's my book. It's been drying nicely for quite a while now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold up these covers. So I can use a ruler or my bone folder, and I'm just going to carefully, because I don't want this to tear, but carefully I'm just going to lift up that page there like that. And I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. Okay, so there's my book, all book shaped. So what I want to do now is add in my hinge. So the best way that I find to do this is to make myself a little guide before I start. So I'm going to grab myself a pencil and I'm going to measure halfway down my spine. Now my spine was 1 1/4 inches. Half of that will be 5/8 of an inch. Yeah, 5/8 of an inch, 1.5 inches. No, my spine is 1.5 inches, therefore halfway is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to use my pencil just to mark 3/4 of an inch across that spine. So now I know with my hinges that this middle hinge is going to line up with either one of those marks that I've just made. So when I put my hinges on like that, I can be sure that I'm going to get them absolutely straight. Now, putting our hinges in, very important to get this bit right, because if we don't get this bit right, the whole book will fall to pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of double-sided tape in, just to keep these hinges in place whilst they are gluing to the spine. And then I am going to add some wet glue. So my wet glue needs to absolutely cover this hinge piece. So first of all, I'm just going to make sure that I've got plenty of glue on the wings. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to focus on behind the hinges. So here you can see the hinges. I'm making sure that I've got plenty of glue on those hinged areas and just over onto the wings. It's really important that there is plenty of glue on this area. Okay, and now I'm going to pop my hinge unit onto my book, knowing that this middle hinge will line up with those 2 marks that I made earlier. So if I put that on there, I know that that hinge is in the right place. Let's turn it round and make sure it lines up on that side. And now my hinges are in my book and I know that they're straight, and I know that they're right in the middle of my spine. So it is really, really important that this hinge unit is stuck completely flat to the spine. So I'm using my bone folder to get into these creases of the hinges to make sure that it is stuck absolutely flat to the spine. So if I lift this up now, you can see, I hope, that this is absolutely glued tight to the spine. Very important. Now, once again, I want you to leave this to dry, but over the next few minutes, I want you just to keep going back with your bone folder and just making sure that that hinge unit is adhered as flat as possible to your book. So put your book to one side and we're going to start on the pages. Okay, so now we're going to get on and make page 1 for our book. If you can hear any snoring in the background, I apologise now, but Storm's lying down just out of shot and she is snoring. So what we're going to do first is cut 1 at 6 by 8 inches. Then I want you to cut 1 at 5.5 by 7 inches. I want you to cut 1 at 4.75 by 7 inches. And 1 at 5 by 3.5 inches. That will do for now. Probably a bit more than we needed to cut, but it'll do for starters. Okay, so grab your scoreboards. And we're going to start off on the one that is 6 by 8 inches. And we are going to score on the 6-inch side, which means that we've got the 6 inches at the top. And we are going to score at 1/2 inch. We're going to turn that round, so we're going to be scoring on the 8-inch side, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. And we are going to score at 7.5 inches. Then on our one that is 4.75 by 7 inches, we are going to score on the, that's the wrong one, that one, 4.75 inches. We are going to score on the 4.75 inch side at 1/2 inch, but we are also going to make a parallel score at 3/4 inch. So what we've got here is a page that's got, it's going to have like a 1/4 inch gusset on it. Okay, this one, the larger one, which is 5 by 3.5 inches, we're going to score on the 5-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 4.5 inches. and then we're going to score on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Now this is the first of the pockets, but I just want to give you a feel for it, so we'll go back and do the others later. Right, so what we're going to do is start off by making the base of our page. So what we're going to do is take that first one, the big piece that's got the score marks intersecting score lines, and then the one that hasn't got any score marks at all, and what you'll find is that that just fits inside those score marks there, okay, because this is going to form our page, and that's going to be in 2 parts, so that what we're going to have is an opening here where we can put our binding. So what we're going to do first of all, if I can find my scissors, is we are going to mitre where these score lines intersect. So to do this, what I do, call it kinky mitering, I'm going to just snip up to where those score lines intersect, and then I'm just going to change the angle of my scissors slightly so that I'm cutting not a straight line across, but it's got a bit of a kink in it, because I find that that makes that fold sit a lot flatter. So I'm going to fold on those flaps there like that, and I'm going to burnish because we want a really nice sharp crease. Now this would normally just slot in there like that, and you'll find quite likely that when you push it in, it's got a little bit of a gap here because it's just marginally too big to fit in perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim it off just ever so slightly, about 1/8 inch maybe, just on 2 sides, so that when I slip this in now, it remains flat. She says it remains flat, and I can just glue that down. So if I put some glue on the inside of these flaps here, I have to go and get some more glue in a minute. And then slot that inside there and close the flaps over the top. That is going to be my first page done. Now when I'm making books, for me, the flap is always the bit on the back. No particular reason for that, it just is. So that's going to be the back. This will be the front of my page, and as you can see, I've got a gap here, and that's where it's going to attach to our binding. But this piece, the piece with the parallel score line, what I want to do now is fold on those 2 lines so that what I've got is a page that's got a bit of a gusset on it, which means that what's underneath isn't going to make this page pop up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop some glue onto that flap there like that. A bit too much glue there. You'll either get none or far too much. And I'm just going to attach this to that page right up to where that page opening is. So what I've got now is my page, and it's got a gusset on it, okay? That little flap's got a gusset. Now this one, this is going to be a pocket that sits on the very, very front. So once again, what I want you to do is just snip up to where those score lines intersect, do a bit of a kinky mitre, fold those over like that. Nice sharp burnish. Glue on the flaps like that. and I'm going to attach this to the very, very front, and it will fit perfectly side to side at the bottom of the page. So I've got the front of my page here. This is what we're going to see as soon as we open the book. So this is this bit here. There we go. And what we've made is this front flap here, which we'll put a photo mat into, and we've made this flap. So next what we're going to go on to do is make this pocket here and these stack pockets. Okay, so put that bit to one side, grab your trimmer, and some of your cardstock, and I want you to cut one that is 8 by 3.5 inches. I want you to cut one that is 3.5 by 6.5 inches. And I want you to cut, another one that is 3.5 by 6.5 inches. Okay, and put your trimmers to one side, grab your scoreboard. Now that first one that we cut, that was 8 by 3.5 inches, we're going to score on the 8-inch side, so we're putting the 8 inches at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 inch, and we're going to score at 7.5 inches. Turn it round 90 degrees, so we're scoring on the 3.5 inch side, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. It's just a very plain and simple pocket. Those other two pieces that we've got that are 3.5 by 6.5, we're going to score these differently. So the first one, we'll start off by scoring on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Turn it round, so we're now scoring. Oh, cut off in my prime. So what we're doing with this one, as I said, this is the piece that is 6.5 by 3.5. We are scoring on the 6.5 inch side at 1/2 inch and at 6 inches, and at the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Now the other one that's the same size, we are going to score on the 6.5 inch side at 1/2 inch, and we are going to score at 6 inches, but this time on the 3.5 inch side we're going to score at 1 inch. Okay, so put all that to one side and we'll finish our page 1 off. So we're going to start off, we've got our pocket already on the inside. Now we're going to put our pocket here. So I'm going to grab some scissors and I'm just going to kinky mitre that corner there. Like that. Fold on my score lines. And burnish. And this is going to attach to the inside of that extra flap that we've made, but only up to the point where we've got that score line. So if you remember, we've got a 1/4 inch gusset down here, but we're going to attach this to the edge of that 1/4 inch gusset. So we've got the edge of our page, our pocket with the open bit pointing outwards, and then here we've got that gusset bit. So let me just pop a bit of glue on that flap. Let's add that in there. So you can see what we've got here is we've got the edge of our page, we've got the open bit of the pocket. Here we've got this gusset, which is this bit here. And then here, what we've got, we're going to make our stack pocket. So with those 2 pieces of card that we've still got left, we're going to start with the one that's just an ordinary pocket with the 1/2 inch flap at the bottom, just like normal. So kinky mitre those corners. Fold and burnish. And we're going to attach this to the very bottom of our original page 1, right to the edge, like that. Okay, so when it folds up, our gusset isn't getting in the way, okay? It just opens up and we've got our pocket. Now to do the stack bit, what we're going to do here is we're going to snip up to where the score lines intersect on that 1 inch mark there. But we're then going to snip it like that, because we've got that 1 inch flap there. Now that 1 inch flap actually acts as a guide. We're not going to fold on it. We're only going to fold on these 2 outside bits, and I'm only going to just do it loosely because I like to make sure it fits before I start burnishing. So this line across here of the stack pocket where we've got the score mark, that acts as a guide. So when I slip this into that pocket there, I need to make sure that it fits in nicely. Slightly too big, so I just want to fold that over a little bit more before I burnish. Let's see if that fits in nicely. Yeah, much happier with that. So I'm just going to burnish that, make sure I've got a really good crease. Pop that in there. And my stacked pocket is complete. Okay, so front flap, stack pockets. Now we've just got to do this back bit here. So these are the same on the backs of each of our pages. They're just different sizes. So if you grab your trimmer and some card, we are going to cut one at 3.5 by 6.5 inches. So 3.5 by 6.5 inches, and one at 4 by 5.5 inches. And that's going to be the flat bit that goes over the top. Okay, so put your trimmer to one side, grab your scoreboard. Now the piece that is 3.5 by 6.5, we're just making that into a very ordinary pocket, just like we have with the others. So we're going to score on the 6.5 inch side at 1/2 inch, and we're going to score at 6 inches. Turn it round 90 degrees, so we're now scoring on the 3.5 inch side, and we are going to score at 1/2 inch. And then on this last piece, we're going to score on the 4 inch side at 1/2 inch, and that's it. Okay, so put your scoreboard to one side, fold on the flappy bit, burnish. With this one, once again, kinky mitre those corners, fold, burnish, and we're going to attach this to the very back of our page 1. So normal pocket, that's going to go on the very bottom here like that, so it fits perfectly around the back bottom of our page 1. So we've got the opening here. This is where we're going to attach it to the hinges. And then we've got our flap here. So just a little bit of glue on there. And we are going to attach that to the top. So obviously you're going to have a gap between where your flap finishes and your pocket starts, but that will make it nice and easy to put our inserts in. It's really more of a design thing than anything else. So that is our page 1. We've got our opening here where we're going to attach it to our hinges in due course, but that is page 1 complete. So we're going to come back and do page 2. Okay, so now what we're going to do is page 2. Now page 2, as you can see here, it's a sort of an accordion, foldy outy pagey thing. Quite very simple to do. And then on the back, as I said before, just very simple with this same flap and pocket configuration. So if you can grab your trimmers, we will make our base page first, and I want you to cut one at 7 by 8 inches. I want you to cut another at 6.5 by 7 inches. I want you to cut 3 at 6.5 by 7.5 inches. So that's 3 at 6.5 by 7.5 inches. We might as well cut out those back bits now, because I know you know how to do it, but we might as well cut it out. And I want you to cut one at 3.5 by 7.5 inches. So one at 3.5 by 7.5 inches, and one at 4.5. Oop, not wide enough. Try that one. Yep. 4.5 by 6.5 inches. Okay, now this page is really easy to put together. Just get rid of all of these bits. Keep these bigger pieces because we can use these for our photo mats later. I always like to keep hold of the bigger pieces. I'm going to put those to one side, and I'm going to grab my scoreboard. And starting with the first piece, which is our base page, we're going to score on the 7-inch side at 1/2 inch. We are then going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7.5 inches. So this is the piece that was 8 by 7. The next piece, which is 6.5 by 7, we're not going to be scoring on that, so put that to one side. Now the next 3 pieces that we cut at 6.5 by 7.5 inches, I want you to score on the 7.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. And that is the same on all of them. So score on the 7.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Okay. And then the last pieces for the back, we've got our basic pocket, which is 3.5 by 7.5. So score on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. And the 7.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. And at 7 inches. and then the flap we're going to score on the 4.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Okay, so let's pop those away. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to build up our page. So what I want you to do is get the first 2 pieces that we took, which was, I think, the 7 by 8? Yep, 7 by 8, and then the one that was 6.5 by 7. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to miter these corners. So a little bit of kinky mitering again, please. So where these score lines intersect, I want you to miter those corners, fold, and burnish. Now this piece that hasn't got any score marks in it, we want it to just slip in there, but as you can see with mine, when I slip it in, it's just ever so slightly big, so it bows a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a sliver off the top there and just see if that now slides in perfectly, which it does. I'm just going to take another little piece off the other side. Open up these flaps, a little bit of glue, which of course isn't coming out now. So a little bit of glue on those flaps. Let's pop that piece in there. And glue that down. Okay, so that's our base page. Now on the front of that we'll go this accordion, and on the back will go the pocket and flap that we did on the previous one. So if you get your 3 pieces of card that we made just the one score line on, and I want you to score and burnish on each of those. And what we're going to do is we're going to attach these to each other so that it forms our accordion. So this is our top sheet, okay? What we're going to do with that is we are going to put some glue on that flap and then attach that like that. Now this flap, I should have folded that the other way up, because this piece is now going to attach on there like that with that one. Actually, I could just do it that way, couldn't I? What sort of idiot am I? Right, okay, so some glue on that flap. Oh, brain's not working today. Let's just pop that on top there. There we go. So I've got my page here and it folds out like that, okay? So this is going to attach to the top of that page like that. So here we go. Here's the pieces that I've just attached to each other. So they're forming that zigzag. I've got this one flap left over here. That is going to just have some glue on it like that. And I'm going to attach this to the top of that page, and I need to make sure that my opening is on the left hand side. Okay, so I've just attached that to my base page. So now my accordion folds out like that with loads of room on it for photos and such like. So what I've got to do now is just add the bits onto the back. So I've got my pocket and my flap. Once again, mitering the pocket corners. I'm going to fold and burnish on the pocket and also on the flap. Lost my bone folder, there it is. Like that. And now I'm on the back of my page, so the opening is now on the right hand side. And I'm going to pop some glue on the flaps like that. Attach that to the bottom of that page. And then this top flap, exactly the same as on page 1, that attaches to the top there. So actually I've cut that too long, that needs to be half an inch shorter, so I'm going to have to go back and explain that now. You'll already know this because I've gone back and explained it, so I'm going to have to cut that down to 4 inches by 6.5 inches. Okay, yeah, so now I've got that ½ inch gap in there. I'll just change that on my list. Brilliant. Okay, so that's my page 2 made, and I'm going to put that to one side so that I can pop that in my book with my page 1, and we'll come back and do page 3. Okay, so we're on to our third and final page now, which is this one. This has a flap with a pocket. It opens up and you've got these 2 opposing pockets here, and then on the back is the finish up, exactly the same as on the other 2 pages. Once we've done this, we'll come back and we'll put our pages into the book, and then we will look at the inside, front and back cover. So we're going to start off by making our base page. So if you want to grab your trimmers, we are going to cut one piece at 8 by 8 inches. We're going to cut another one that is 7 by 7 inches. And that is our base page. We're going to cut the flap now, which is 7.5 by 7 inches. And then we're going to cut the pocket that goes on the front, which is 3.5 by 8 inches. Now we actually need to cut 2 more that same size because these are the ones that go inside, and these are also 3.5 by 8 inches. So you've really got 3 that size. Then all we have to do is just cut the flap and the pocket for the very back, which I want you to cut one at 3.5 by 8 inches. That's quite a popular size today. And then the flap no, ignore that last bit. It needs to be 3.5 by 8.5 inches, not 8. So that bottom pocket on the back is 3.5 by 8.5 inches. And then the flap is 4 by 7.5 inches. Okay, right, turn those over, pop these bits away. And let's get out our scoreboards. So we're starting on this first page, which is our actual base page, which is 8 by 8 inches. And I want you to score on one 8-inch side at 1/2 inch. And then I want you to score on the other 8-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7.5 inches. Now the next piece that we cut at 7 by 7 is the bit that pops in there. So we're just going to leave that be. If I cut that right, 8 by 8. This bit should be 8 by 7.5. No, it should be 7 by 7.5. I'll give up today. 7 by 7.5. I'll just cut that out again. So this is the bit that slips into the back of our page. Of course, now I've run out of white card. Hang on. Here we go, which is 7 by 7.5. You'll already know this because I'll have gone back and I'll have written on it. Right, so that's the bit that fits in there. I can't even cut that out right. Yeah, 7 by 7.5, and that fits in there. Okay, then what we've got is the flap that fits onto the front of that page. And we've cut that at 7.5 by 7 inches. And we are going to score on the 7.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Then we've got the pocket that goes on the front. This is 3.5 by 8 inches. We're going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7.5 inches. Turn it round 90 degrees, so we're now scoring on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. And we're going to do that with the next two pieces as well. These are the pieces that go inside. So we're going to score on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. And we're going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7.5 inches. And that is the same on both pieces. Okay, so the final two pieces, these are the bits that go on the very back. We're going to be scoring on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch, and then on the 8.5 inch side at 1/2 inch and at 8 inches, and on the flap on the 4-inch side at 1/2 inch. Okay. So if you get your base pieces, we're going to just mitre that corner there where the score lines intersect. I'm going to fold those over. And burnish those well. And this will just slip in there, but we're going to cut a little bit off first, just to make sure that it fits exactly. So let's cut a little bit off the top, a little bit off the side, slip that in there. Just a little bit more. There, and that fits in just right. So let's pop that in there, fold those over. That's our base page made. Now we need our flap, which is the one that's got the score mark down the one side. So we're just going to fold on that and burnish it. And we are going to attach this flap, so we're going to put some glue on here, and we're going to attach it to the far right hand side of our page like that. Okay, so some glue on that flap, pop that on there like that, make sure it all lines up. And we've got our flap that opens up there. Now, pockets, make sure I'm using the right one. I'm going to mitre those corners. Fold that over. Burnish those edges. And I'm going to attach this to the front of that flap. Like that. Let's glue that down. Okay, so that's my pocket on the front of the flap. When I open up now, I need a pocket here and I need a pocket here. So I've got those other two smaller pieces. I'm going to do exactly the same with those. So I'm going to mitre that corner. Let's fold. Burnish on those score lines. And these are going to fit with the opening pointing towards each other on either side here like that. So some glue. So this bit here, this is the opening where I'm going to attach the page to my hinges. And then over here, there is my other pocket. And that is that page completed. Now all I need to do is the very back. So we've got the flappy bit and we've got the pocket, which I'm just going to mitre the corners. burnish that. And I'm going to attach this to the back of page 3, like that. So that's my pocket on the bottom and the flap on the top. Now, before we attach these pages into the book, I would strongly suggest that you at very least base mat your pages. So what I mean by that is you've got your 3 pages that are made up here that are going to sit in the book like that, but it might be an idea for you to decorate them. But just at least, if you're not going to put all the fancy bit on yet, just at least decorate the bases of them. So when I say the bases, what I mean is these background bits in the pockets, these bits on the front of the pockets, but you can leave this sort of decoration, these really decorated bits, until the bits, the pages are actually in the book, because it just makes it a whole lot easier to have it lying flat when we haven't got any sort of like dimensional things going on. So if you want to go off and do that, we'll come back and we will put our pages in the book. Okay, so are you ready to put your book together? We've got our covers, which we made earlier, and we put our hinges in. Now what we need to do is fold those up into the page, the book shape. So I'm just going to use a ruler, or I'm using my bone folder, and I'm just going to, you can see there that I've just flipped that so that now my page, my book cover folds up, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. So holding it down with my bone folder, and it'll just naturally fold up into my book shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my pages into the book. Now I find it easier to start with the back page. Now as you remember, each of our hinges are 3/4 of an inch, but what I want you to do first is mitre the corners, but I want you only to mitre up to about 1/2 an inch, not all the way down to where the hinge is. So you've got this kind of, I don't know, shape going on here where this is the hinge and it's got a lip on it here, and we've got that angled bit, and I want you to do that on all of them. So on each of your hinges, what you've got is a little gap, and this will just help us to put our pages in properly and easily. So I don't know how well you can see this, but I've got my hinges that are flat at the top, and then about 1/4 of an inch in they come out. So I'm going to start with my page 3, which is the biggest page, and I'm going to make sure first of all that it'll just slip on to my hinges properly. So I want this to slip on roughly to where the angled piece ends. And I'm just going to put some glue on the front and the back of my hinge, and I'm just going to put it up on just where the angled piece is. Okay, so we're not going to be slipping our pocket, our page, this pocket bit here, we're not going to be slipping it all the way down to the spine. We need to leave a little bit of a gap. And that's what helps our pages to sit flat. So the closer you get to the spine, the more likely it is your page isn't going to sit right. So I've just slipped my page onto the hinge there where the glue is. I'm just lying that down, and now I'm just making sure that that is stuck front and back into my book. Okay, so you can see that what we've got here, and if you can see that, is a little gap between where the hinge is and where the page attaches, and that will help our pages sit really flat in our book. Okay, so we always leave a bit of a gap, but this is just a little bit more exaggerated. So we're going to do the same again. So glue front and back of that hinge up to where the angled mitre ends. And we're going to pop page 2 in. Okay, so this is the bit that opens up. I'm going to slip that onto the hinge, lay it down on top of that page, make sure it sits flat, and then press it down and make sure that that page is stuck in really well, and the same on that side. Okay, same with the final page. Glue on the hinges. And I'm just going to add that last page in. Line it up. Make sure it sits straight. And glue that page in. Okay, so that is my 3 pages in my book. Now all I've got to do is to put some pattern paper on here. I'll cut out white just because I've done the rest of the book in white, front and back, and then what we're going to do is add in our little pockets, which are very simple pockets, and they just go in there. So as you can see, I've put pattern paper directly on the back here, but I'm just going to put some white on just because I haven't obviously decorated mine up with pattern paper. So let's see what size I need to cut, and this is the same for the front and the back. So I need to cut that at 8 by 7 or just under. See if that fits on there. Yep. And then I'm going to cut these little pockets. These are very simple little pockets. They haven't got you know, folds and flaps, and they're just simply bits of card, and they are 3.5 by 6.5, and you're going to need 2 of those. So 3.5 by 6.5. Okay, so you're obviously going to be doing this with your pattern paper. Just going to glue that into the front of my book like that. And then my pocket, very simple. I'm simply going to put a little bead of glue around the edges on 3 sides, and I'm going to pop that into the middle there like that. So what I've got now is a pocket, a very simple pocket there. I'm going to do exactly the same at the back. Like that. bead of glue on 3 sides of that pocket and pop that in there like that. Okay, so that is the book completed. Now you can go back and decorate it to your heart's content. And then the only final thing left to do is to make our photo mats. Now photo mats, I just use offcuts of my card and then I decorate them up. So they can be whatever size you want them to be. As you can see, that's a bit of an odd size. Most photos tend to come in 6 by 4 inches or 3 by 4 inches or 2 by 3 inches or 4 by 4 inches, whatever. But you can still, you know, make photo mats of any size you like. So there's photo mats that you need to make to go into each of the pockets. So there's pockets at the front and the back and then throughout your book. So for instance, with this one, I've just added a little bit of interest by doing some paper folding, just making it into a ribbon and then sewing it on my sewing machine. That just pops into that pocket there. We've got a photo mat that pops in here. Photo mats into the stacked pockets. So that one will obviously hold quite a large one because it's a deep pocket. And then we've got these little photo mats that go in there. No photo mats on here as such because there's no pockets, but what I have done is I've used some of the pattern paper here to make a little tuck spot for some photo mats. Okay. And I've just used bits of the pattern paper just to decorate up where I can. Photo mats again there. A couple of photo mats in that bit. Photo mats in this pocket here. Photo mats there. You can get some quite big ones in these. And then there at the back again. So I hope you've enjoyed making this little book with me. Thank you so much to Pip and Darlie for the absolutely gorgeous birdsong papers which I've used, and if you want to get these yourself, I'll put the link in below. And hopefully you guys will join me again soon for another little book, but do take a look at the Shokart papers because they are absolutely stunning and the colourways are just beautiful. So thanks again to Pip and Darlie, and I'll see you guys all soon. Bye.